Today I'm going to be wiring up the fans on the 818. I'm using the Subaru fans with a custom shroud on the Performance World radiator. The only part of the Subaru wiring I'm using are these connectors. I did a little testing with the battery earlier. Both grounds connected, both power connected, seems to be high power. I'll do a little testing when it's running. I may not want them to both be at full power all the time. Maybe I'll have them both on low, or one on high, one on low. We'll see what the car wants, but initially we'll start with both on high. There's only one signal wire from the ECU, and there's only one output for turning the fans on and turning the fans off, so I don't have that high-low function. So we'll start at all the way high and go from there. I'm going to wire up the fans the same way I did my coils and my fuel pump, and that's direct power from the battery through an inline fuse and then a relay, and all the fuse and relay will be located right next to the fans. So the only wires coming through the firewall will be the 12 volt power from the battery and the signal power from the ECU. So I picked these up in Napa. I think Grout is the or Grout is the brand. These are 5-pin relays. Comes with the harness, which is really nice. The only difference in a 4-pin and a 5-pin is a 4-pin typically is normally closed, which means power doesn't run through it unless there's a signal source, or a 12 volt source. A 5-pin has the option to do normally open or normally closed. I just won't be using the center pin. And then these are the inline fuses that I also bought at Napa. I believe the same brand name. So there's your fuse inside, little watertight package. And it makes for nice, neat mounting. You can put them together nice and close. I did a little sketch of how we'll be wiring up. Let's see if you can see this here. Wiring up the relay. So we have 85 is going to go to ground. 87 is going to go through the fuse to 12 volts. 86 is the signal wire from the ECU, and then 30 goes to power on the fans. So I'll go ahead and plug the Subaru plugs into the fans. And you can see here, I've already drilled and tapped 3 holes, 1032. And the center hole, I took the paint off around the hole. That's going to be our ground. So we can go ahead and attach our relays and fuses. I went ahead and already pre-cut a couple of pieces for the grounds for the fans. Put some eyelets on the end so we can figure out their lengths. So we'll start by bolting those into a ground location. Both relays will also have the ground in there. So now the blue wires from each relay are another ground that are going to get hooked on there. The nice thing about mounting the relays and the fuses and everything in the same area is now I can pull everything out, lay it on the bench instead of leaning over the front of the car. Connect up as much as I can. I'll connect up basically everything except for the 2 wires coming through the firewall, so then the whole harness by itself can be finished, heat shrunk, even taped or zip tied. Then install it, then connect up those 2 more wires. So for butt connectors, I'm using, you can see here, it's just a bare aluminum butt connector, and then I use some some shrink tube. I got this stuff at Home Depot. I'm sure there's better stuff out there. Someone will chime in, no doubt. So I'm gonna strip some wires, do some crimps, do some heat shrinking. Got my trusty Princess Auto heat gun here. I'll do as much of it as I can here, and then we'll move it back to the car and finish it up. So here's our two ECU connections. I'm going to keep them separate for now. We can test each fan and each relay separately. I also don't have the wire run from the ECU yet, and I didn't want to have to fire up the ECU and figure out if I could even test it. I'm not sure if that's just something you can click in the wizard to test the fans, or if I have to wait till the car actually heats up. So this is an easier way to test it. I'm not worried about the signal coming from the ECU. That'll be fine. So I've got a little 12-volt battery here from my daughter's ATV. We're going to use that for signal. So ground to here, and first fan, fiberglass dust, but that works. Second fan, oh, let's make sure there's nothing in your fans. I'm going to go ahead and call that a success. Peace.